If you wish to be a success in the world, promise everything, deliver nothing. Napoleone Bonaparte. I'm sorry, were you there? No? Then shut the fuck up! Ridley Scott. I think that should sum up everything wrong with Ridley Scott's Napoleon Dynamite. We've talked about movies on this channel before that are based on historical figures. Pocahontas, Balto, Pocahontas again, this movie when it first came out, that weird Christopher Columbus movie, Pocahontas for a third time, technically, just to name all of them. Yeah, that's all the historical movies I've reviewed over the years. And yet I still feel like I'd be more inclined to make a Napoleon movie than Ridley Scott. I already didn't like this movie, and I've planned to tear it to shreds for a while now. Yet, over time, I've noticed a weird reaction to this movie. Not from filmgoers or even critics, but from the very man himself, as I have never seen a man who hates a movie he directed more than Ridley Scott does with his Napoleon. I've seen plenty of directors regret making a movie, or admit the film didn't turn out the way they intended. Don Bluth has famously disowned A Troll in Central Park, yet he admitted that he loved the concept and wanted to try to make the movie be as good as it could be. It was just studio intervention, and the fact that he was making 3 movies at the same time, that's why it turned out the way it did. Michael Bay despises Revenge of the Fallen. You know how bad a movie has to be for Michael Bay to not like it? All this man needs in a movie is boobs and explosions, and he's happy. Yet Revenge of the Fallen did not make him happy. Yet again though, Michael just kinda laughed it off and moved on to the next movie. And hey, it still made a shit ton of money anyway, so why should he even be mad? Maybe that's why Ridley Scott's so angry. This movie didn't make money. This movie bombed. This movie bombed so hard, dude! On a budget between $130 to $200 million, this film needed to make between $500 to $600 million just to break even. Instead, oh shit! Yeah, it was a disaster. Though I do mostly blame Apple for this though. It was sort of a weird experiment with them, as they were kinda hoping to do what Encanto did a few years back. Remember when Encanto released into theaters for about a month, only to then be released to Disney+? Now, Encanto didn't make a ton of money in the box office, yet when it released to Disney+, it just blew up and became a huge phenomenon. That's kind of what Apple was hoping to do with Napoleon, only without a pandemic forcing that decision in the first place. Sorry, but if the whole idea is to give a film a limited release to theaters and then just drop it onto your streaming service, well then why not just drop it onto the streaming service and cut the middleman out entirely? Or just do the logical choice and fully commit to a theatrical release and then do the streaming service, so that way you make more money in the end. Maybe it's just the fact that I don't know a single person who actually uses Apple TV. Hell, outside of this movie and the Prehistoric Planet documentaries, I don't know a single thing that's even on their site. It just feels like Apple TV is the sickly brother of the streaming service family. Like seriously, what does Apple TV even have that Netflix, HBO Max, or Disney Plus doesn't have? It just makes the idea of them making this gigantically expensive movie even more absurd to me. I know they made Killers of the Flower Moon the same year as Napoleon, and I know people love that movie, yet it ended up costing even more money than Napoleon, and it bombed harder than Napoleon. So whoever film company is investing their money into Apple, they're just losing their money. Though I guess you could also chalk it up to Ridley Scott just not having the same name recognition that he had years ago. There's no denying the man's legacy. He's made some of the most iconic movies ever made, like Blade Runner and the original Alien. And I don't think I can put him in the same box as Robert Zemeckis, a director who also made some legendary movies, but has since fallen off really hard. I won't talk too much about that though, since I honestly haven't seen a whole lot of Ridley Scott's movies, only his most famous ones, and also Exodus, Gods and Kings. A movie my dad took me to go see back when it came out, and even back then I didn't like that movie. Why was Moses white? Why was Ramesses white? What the fuck? Sorry, I'm getting off topic. Like I said, I've been meaning to talk about this movie for a while, and now I'm taking the time to do so. This film isn't just a bad retelling of Napoleon and his life, it's also just a really bad movie that ignores so many rules of filmmaking. But let's start with the history stuff because I feel like being smart today. Seriously, you guys have no idea how much epic history TV I've watched in preparation for this video. It's been a hell of a ride. This movie is wrong in so many ways, and I'm not just talking about in terms of accuracy. Well, I am in this section of the video, but you get what I mean. Now, I don't need a historical film to be 100% accurate to enjoy it, alright? I actually really enjoyed the movie Balto despite its historical inaccuracies, and there's movies out there that just plain don't give a shit about that kind of thing. Remember that Abraham Lincoln movie where he fought vampires? Yeah, I don't think anyone was that butthurt about that film not being super accurate. There's also that seriously underrated Mr. Peabody and Sherman movie that also kind of embellishes history. Like, I'm pretty sure King Agamemnon wasn't a frat boy voiced by Patrick Warburton. But to be fair, that movie does get a lot of things right too, and it's a movie I hope to dive into more in the future, so we'll just put a pin into this movie for now, okay? Boop! Hey, anyone remember when Abraham Lincoln and Batman teamed up to fight John Wilkes Booth? Oh, wait, I'm sorry, John Wilkes Boom?
Time to bring down the curtain on a Yankee rodent.
Oh, way down south in the land of traitors.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's there! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
My point is, historical fantasy can be fun. Maybe it drives some people crazy, but I think it really is a case-by-case scenario. Like, why were people more offended by Pocahontas than they were Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer? I don't think I need to explain that here. I'm pretty sure the difference is clear. So the question I have now is Napoleon offensively inaccurate?
Who built this thing? Who
What do you
built
mean?
this
You don't
thing?
want to see yet another scene where all of these actors just stand in a room and talk for 20 minutes?
Oh, by the way, that's Tsar Alexander I. That's the guy Napoleon kissed in that picture I showed. They don't kiss in the movie, though, which is bullshit. They should have kissed.
Dude, this guy gets back at his wife. It's a gay revenge story. I'll watch that. Just give me that. Give me anything other than this.
Can we just watch the porn parody of Napoleon?
So, fuck it. Let's do a speed round of a bunch of things this movie gets wrong or simply ignores. And yes, I will be petty and do small things. I don't give a fuck. This movie is so damn terrible, so let's begin. Napoleon wasn't there for Marie Antoinette's execution. He also wasn't in his late 40s yet. Napoleon got stabbed in this fight and even almost died from it.
According to the law of 20th September 1792.
Napoleon and Josephine married on March 9th, 1796. This is so off. Like what?
I've already conquered Italy, who surrendered without conflict.
Yeah, no conflict at all, if you don't count the Battle of Lodi, the Battle of Castiglione, the Siege of Mantua, the Battle of Arcole, and the Battle of Rivoli. Other than that, and the fact that it was a 2-year conflict, sure, no conflict. Napoleon did not take fucking pot shots at the pyramids. Are you serious? He was a huge lover of history, especially that of Julius Caesar. Why on earth would he do that? Also, the Battle of the Pyramids took place 9 miles away from them. But hey, the Battle of the Pyramids sounds better than the Battle of Mbaba, doesn't it? Napoleon was 5'6", which was average height for the time. Napoleon did not leave Egypt because Josephine was cheating on him. Technically, the Directory ordered him to come back, but he never got those orders. Instead, he simply saw the political climate going on in France and decided to begin his coup.
We have a letter of resignation for you to sign.
No, no, no. I am eating my breakfast. I am enjoying a succulent breakfast.
What is the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal?
If anything, Josephine was sort of a side thing. He dealt with it, sure, but it wasn't the main thing. Instead, he just chose to have his own affairs, primarily with a junior officer's wife named Pauline, to which she would then dump her husband for him. Goddamn, Napoleon, you fucking animal. Also, again, we're skipping the entire Egyptian campaign. The Battle of the Nile, the Battle of Jaffa, which was especially bad, and the Siege of Acre, which was Napoleon's biggest defeat at the time. Oh, but sure, Josephine's getting dicked down and Napoleon's getting dicked around. Yeah, this is what I wanted in a Napoleon movie. Fine! The movie just skips the whole idea of the 3 consuls, followed by Napoleon becoming the sole consul for life. It was like a whole thing where there were 2 other guys who would share power with him, but then Napoleon did some political maneuvering and removed them. Again, it was a whole thing. Napoleon never grabbed the crown from the Pope's hands like this. In fact, the Pope was fully aware of Napoleon's plan to crown himself. This was done to avoid a century-old Charlemagne-like confusion with the people on who was really controlling who. Napoleon crowned himself so that the people of France, and thus Europe, would know that he was the one in charge, which was actually really smart of him to do. Too bad this movie does jack shit to actually illustrate why that was so smart. we'll come back to this. Napoleon was very much fertile. There was no need for this test. He wasn't forced to test whether or not he could have kids or not. He willingly chose to cheat on his wife with Eleanor. They had a son who, fun fact, we actually have a real photograph of. And even more interesting, Charles Leon's descendants are still alive to this day. So by proxy, Napoleon's descendants are still alive today. All because he cheated! Speaking of which, Josephine was not the one who recommended the divorce. If anything, she was terrified of the idea. But then she's seen regretting it at the divorce later?
You dirty, indecisive, stinky poo-poo face! Why don't you make up your mind? No wonder Dad left you for a fortune-telling 8-ball!
This is for your country. That's what this is, right?
He did not slap her at their divorce. Fuck you. They couldn't even get the date of the divorce correct? What? Napoleon and Josephine got divorced on January 10th, 1810. Yet the film shows the Treaty of Tilsit being signed after that? Come on! Also, we skipped the Battle of Trafalgar, the Battle of Jena, the Battle of Eylau, and the Battle of Friedland. Because of course we did. Technically we did get the Battle of Marengo in the extended cut, which you would think is a really big deal. Like, wow, they actually included an important battle in a movie about Napoleon! Except no, they didn't. They just reused footage from the Battle of Borodino that we see later in the movie with slight editing to the lighting.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
When we hold to the continental blockade, we choke them from the trade and we fight for our most sacred rights.
Oh, wow! The film actually brought up the continental system! Do you guys think this will play into the story and the movie will explain why this was such a dumbass idea on Napoleon's part and why it played such a big role in his inevitable downfall? What do you fucking think? Of course not, you dolt! Don't forget, you weren't there 200 years ago, so shut the fuck up. Also, Napoleon and Alexander kissed. I'm very mad this did not make the cut. Kinda fucked up to take your newborn son to your ex-wife's house just to show him off when she struggled so hard to have one of her own. Though to be fair, this actually did happen apparently. Though he wasn't a newborn, he was 2 years old, so I'm counting it. Fuck you! By the way, no mention of Aspern Essling, or Wagram, or how about the Peninsular War? You know, the gigantic 6-year-long conflict in Spain that was effectively Napoleon's Vietnam, where he constantly dealt with an endless guerrilla war and lost nearly 250,000 French troops? It was a pretty big deal and a huge contributing factor to his eventual downfall. It would also give some of his marshals some things to do since they're barely in this film to begin with. But sure, let's just do some more boring Josephine shit, why not? Man, the Battle of Borodino looks fucking awesome. Sure is a shame that it lasted only 20 seconds in real life. What do you mean it lasted a full day? Also, Napoleon never rode a horse in the battle. That's honestly really stupid. He does realize that if he dies, it's practically an immediate game over for the French, right? That's so stupid. Why did the Russians wait until after the French took Moscow before they set it on fire? Are they stupid? Yeah, let's wait until after the French take the city before setting it on fire. Not beforehand! That would just make too much sense. Also, how the fuck did no one notice them do this? Napoleon and his marshals are just standing there dumbfounded by what happened. There's literally 100,000 French soldiers in Moscow. How did not a single one of them see the arsonists and stop them? What is this movie? Also, we skipped the 1813 and 1814 campaigns, which also includes the Battle of Leipzig, the single largest battle the Napoleonic era ever saw. It's debatably the most important battle Napoleon ever led, and it's not even mentioned once. They called it the Battle of the Nations, for crying out loud. It was the bloodiest battle in European history up until World War I. But sure, let's just imply that Josephine slept with Alexander I instead. Because sure, yeah, why not? Even though she was fucking dead by this point. Yes, she met up with Tsar Alexander before her death, but nothing on earth implies that they slept together. In fact, she allegedly begged to join Napoleon in exile so that they could be together, but she would die before that request was approved or not. Also, she died on May 29th, 1814, just one day before Napoleon's exile to Elba began. Napoleon learned about her death on Elba and reportedly locked himself in his room for 2 days and cried. So, effectively, this whole final act of Josephine being the reason he left Elba is complete bullshit. She was already dead, he already grieved, he just wanted to be emperor again.
Her illness was diphtheria.
It was pneumonia! For fuck's sake! Again! Google! There is so much wrong with the Battle of Waterloo in this movie, it would probably take a whole other video to point it all out. But why bother when you could just watch 1970s Waterloo for a very faithful depiction of the battle? Like, right down to the very landscape itself. It also downplays how vital the Prussians were to the fight and how they contributed to the Allied victory. The movie just sums it up as the moment the Prussians arrived, it was game over for the French. It's a very oversimplified way of saying that even oversimplify didn't oversimplify. Snipers didn't even exist until the 1850s. What the fuck even is that thing? Napoleon and the Duke of Wellington never met. Does this movie actually imply that Napoleon was either poisoned or committed suicide so he could be with Josephine? What a weird fucking ending! He died of stomach cancer. We actually exhumed his body pretty recently and confirmed that it was that killed him. Is Ridley Scott just allergic to Google? It's probably that, right? Yeah, I think the body count was higher than that. Also, there were more battles than that. Also, why is Waterloo emphasized as being one day? I mean, yeah, it was one day long, but so was every other battle listed here! It's not even in chronological order either! Why is the invasion of Russia below Waterloo when Waterloo happened after it? And if it's organized by body count, then why is Borodino over Waterloo? Did the people working on this movie even try? This is so dumb. Ugh. Well, that wasn't fun. It was satisfying, but it wasn't fun. And what's worse, I'm not even done yet. Yep, Austerlitz gets its own segment because of just how bad it is. This is, to me, the single worst scene in the entire movie. Now, for an outsider, you're probably looking at the scene and going, oh, well, that's a bit harsh, Razor. The scene actually looks pretty good. And you know what? I'll give you that. On a technical level, this scene, and even the entire movie, is good. The cinematographers, the costume people, those who worked with lighting, they all did their damnedest to make this movie look as good as they could. When this film was nominated for 3 Oscars, a part of me actually cringed really hard at first. But then I saw they were all for technical achievements, so I said, okay, that's fair. As bad as this movie is overall, these 3 nominations, I believe, are warranted. So long as it didn't go to anything acting-wise, writing-wise, or editing-wise, I would be fine with it. But let me be frank. It doesn't matter how good a movie looks if it does jack shit to illustrate why what we're looking at is so important. And this movie's depiction of Austerlitz is emblematic of everything wrong with Ridley Scott's Napoleon as a whole. Every single issue that plagues this film can be traced back to this sequence. But first, a little bit of context, since the film does jack shit to provide it. December 2nd, 1805. Hey, that's actually my birthday! Let's go! Napoleon had just defeated the Austrians at the Battle of Ulm, taking around 60,000 prisoners. The approaching Russians heard of this defeat of the Austrians and said, nope, fuck that, and Napoleon pursued them into Austria. Eventually, he took Vienna, yet the Russians and remaining Austrians were still retreating. Napoleon then came up with a great idea. Tsar Alexander of Russia was young, headstrong, and also balding. Like, damn bro, even your hairline is retreating from Napoleon. Anyway, Napoleon sent him a letter pretending that he was weak and vulnerable. And like a goofy goober, Alexander went in to rock. But instead, he got rocked. Napoleon set up his army west of a series of hills called the Preston Heights. In this time period, you wanted the high ground as it gave infantry a strong advantage. But instead, Napoleon gambled and allowed the enemy to take it, with his hope being that they would willingly give it up for a quick victory. And give it up, they did. By allowing his right flank here to look weak and underprotected, the Russians couldn't resist and charged down the hill. It was exactly what Napoleon was hoping for. Thanks to a deep fog that rolled in, the Russians had no idea what was coming. Napoleon's main force swept in from the northwest and sliced into the Russian forces, effectively cutting the army in half. The Russians were forced to fall back, but by then it was too late. Napoleon's forces closed down like a bear trap on top of the Russian forces. The Russians were surrounded and were forced to surrender in the thousands. Those who managed to escape the containment found themselves on the Sachin Pond to the south, to which French artillery unleashed hell on them. It's estimated about 200 men and a few dozen horses drowned. There's a reason why this battle is described as Napoleon's masterpiece. With Austrian and Russian losses being 3 times that of the French's, there was no continuing. Emperor Francis I was forced to sign a humiliating peace agreement. The Battle of Austerlitz not only saw the end of the War of the Third Coalition, but it also saw the end of the entire Holy Roman Empire. an entity that had lasted for over 1,000 years. Just from that description, you'd think the movie would do its best to try and capture the significance of this fight and what it meant for Napoleon and the French Empire. You think that. But don't forget, you weren't there 200 years ago, so shut the fuck up. Instead of showing the Russians descending from the Pratzen Heights, let's just have them all fight in this flat fucking basin. Yeah, that's how it really happened, totally. It would have taken a whopping 7 seconds to look up the actual battleground and how it looks today. It would have taken maybe a week to coordinate with historians and experts on how the battle would have looked like, so you could try and make it look a little accurate. You had $200 million to burn, Ridley. What were you doing, Ridley? Oh, but get this, I love to see Napoleon still on the high ground, even though the whole plan banked on him not having that. Oh, and what's this? Are those trenches? Fucking US Civil War trenches? What? Back in those days, hiding like that made you a bitch. Even if you did win, you'd be the laughingstock of the entire continent. Warfare back then relied heavily on maneuverability and speed, especially in Napoleon's case, as that was one of his top strategies. Oh, but trust me, that is just the icing on the cake here.
Wait! Let them think they have the higher ground.
What? Higher ground are you looking at, Napoleon? If Obi-Wan Kenobi was at this battle, he would look Napoleon dead in the eye and say, Napoleon, it's not over yet. This is about as far away from being over as possible. Do you know why? Please leave me alone. It's because there's no fucking high ground here! Are you blind, man? Or was that line of dialogue a cheap little nod to the actual battle? What an odd thing to say given what we're looking at right now. Again, it doesn't matter how well shot or how well lit the battle is in the movie because it's a Napoleon movie. And all the great cinematography in the world doesn't matter if the movie doesn't do anything to showcase what made Napoleon such a legendary general. It's not just Austerlitz, it's every battle in the movie. There's never a moment where we get a sense of Napoleon's strategies taking action, the formations, the marshals and their duties. None of this is illustrated throughout the film. Instead, it's just mindless violence with no real thought put into it. Sure, it's bloody and it does a decent job showcasing just how violent the era was, but you can do that and showcase Napoleon's talent as a military man. There's only a fuck ton of other movies that prove that. Probably the most famous movie that comes to mind is 1970's Waterloo, a movie that focused primarily on, well, Waterloo. Now, I won't pretend this is an amazing movie. It's certainly more historically driven than it is story or character driven, but one thing I will say about it, it nails the history to a T. It actually takes the time to establish the context behind the battle and why it's happening in the first place. It showcases both sides of the conflict and what they have to gain or lose in the battle that is to come, between the Duke of Wellington's wife and this young officer, to Napoleon fighting to try and retain his title. You understand what is at stake and why the violence was deemed so necessary from both sides. Oh, and the production history. Oh my god, don't get me started on it. The film crew actually got assistance from the Soviet Union and was not only given an astonishing 17,000 soldiers to play as extras in the film, but they also used bulldozers to create hills, plant trees, build roads, etc. to ensure that the land they were filming on in Ukraine was as close to the real thing as possible. The movie took the time to establish a relationship between Napoleon and his Marshal Michel Ney, who goes on to make a critical mistake at Waterloo, leading the cavalry over a ridge and into the British square formations. Oh, and this shot! Oh my god, man, this is 1970. This is the kind of filmmaking that we just don't see anymore, and probably never will again thanks to the world of CGI and stuff. Though to be fair, I think that makes things worse for Ridley, because all he had to do was tell his team to get a map of the Battle of Austerlitz, put it into a computer, and try to make it look right. But he didn't. He probably just shrugged and said, I don't know, make a forest, I guess. Make some mountains, I guess. Make it snow, who gives a shit? We weren't there 200 years ago, so shut the fuck up. As impressive as this movie looks, the fact remains that it didn't even seem to try to nail any form of accuracy with the battles or any other historical elements in this movie, with Josephine, the dates of the wedding and the divorce, the age of the main character. It just gives off a sense of laziness. Or, from what Ridley Scott has shown us, just a genuine lack of interest in Napoleon's story. Which, yeah. This movie is also just a bad movie. I remember one French critic calling this movie anti-French propaganda, and yeah, that's actually not a bad way to describe it. Of course, Ridley's response to this was by saying the French hate themselves, which wasn't a denial, so okay. From the way the film was written and how it presents the titular main character, you can tell that this is a British man writing Napoleon while also having the biggest hate boner for Napoleon. This movie at times feels more like an absurdist parody of the character, and it's even been described by some people as a comedy. You know, like the death of Stalin was? But here's the thing. First off, the death of Stalin is hilarious. I quote it all the time in real life. But when in my reviews am I ever gonna have the opportunity to say, go back to Georgia, dead boy? Like, it just never comes up. But outside of being unironically funny, The Death of Stalin also knows what it is. It is not a serious movie in the slightest. They have Steve Buscemi playing as Nikita Khrushchev, and he has no Russian accent. In fact, most of the actors in this movie are just British actors, doing British accents. Again, it is not a serious movie, but it is aware of that, and that helps it. Compared to Ridley Scott's Napoleon, who can never decide a tone, or a theme, or a character arc, or a personality, or a plot device, or anything!
I actually think Joaquin Phoenix is pretty cute, but like not in this context.
Oh, he fucks the way he fights. You're supposed to build up to that, my guy.
Oh man, I was like, that's really fucking funny, the edit there. Like I said, this movie fails at virtually every rule on how to make a film. For starters, the main character is hardly a character at all. Like, I find it so hard to even describe how this Napoleon works. In real life, Napoleon was ambitious, a soldier, a bit of a troublemaker who wasn't afraid to stand up for himself, and very intelligent. He was also very proud. He didn't know when he was beat, and he let his ambition get the best of him. For every great victory he pulled off in real life, there was always a great defeat that could be brought up to compare it to. In 1970s Waterloo, you get a sense of all those character traits. The ambition, the soldier, the intelligence, the pride. It's all conveyed in a very charismatic way thanks to Rob Steiger's performance. Now tell me, what the fuck does Joaquin Phoenix bring to the character of Napoleon? I'm not saying he's a bad actor or anything. I'm sure he could have been a great Napoleon, albeit an older one, if only he was given a clear character from the start. This has got to be one of the most neuronic, all over the place depictions of Napoleon I've ever seen.
What the fuck?
Stop. Don't show this.
There's other people in the room too. They're all like, oh god, why am I here for this?
Why?
Never am I given a sense of consistency with what his personality is. It's almost like he has multiple personality disorder or something. Like, take a look at this scene where Napoleon is confronting Josephine for cheating on him. In this scene, he's angry, he's stern, yet it's understandable. He did get cheated on after all, but in the literal next scene, he's suddenly submissive. He's weeping about his mother. He looks like he's about to call his wife mommy. But then, in the very next scene after that, he's on top again. Like what even was that? I never got a sense that that was supposed to be the same person. And there's dozens of moments like that throughout the film like this. It's like the movie can't keep a consistent character to save his life. Josephine is barely better, I guess. She's salvaged a little bit by the performance of Vanessa Kirby, who is trying so hard to make this work, bless her heart. At least I can see who she's supposed to be. She's a noblewoman who married Napoleon for financial stability, who eventually does learn to love the tyrant for who he is. Too bad this movie is terrible at showcasing anything when it comes to chemistry and character. What does she see in him in the later half of the movie? Hell, What even is there for Napoleon to see in himself? Why does he want to rule France? Why does he want to become emperor? Why is he doing literally anything? I know it's because it happened in real life, but you can't just use that alone. How is that a compelling narrative? Fuck history for 2 seconds. What does this Napoleon want? What does this Napoleon want and why? Say what you want about Pocahontas and all of its changes, but at least Pocahontas is an actual functioning and consistent character. And keep in mind, Pocahontas sucks too, just for different reasons. She's a boring and flat character with little personality, but at least you can say that about her for the entire movie. Napoleon at the 15-minute mark is a different character than he is at the 20-minute mark. And then he's a different character at the 25-minute mark. It's pretty crazy. It's almost as crazy as the pacing, which by the way, is terrible. Though to be fair, I suppose this is the consequence of trying to fit Napoleon's entire military career into one movie. Many films about Napoleon tend to choose a certain chapter of his life and focus specifically on that as it's just easier to give it the depth and time it needs to explore it. That's the cool thing about Napoleon, how one single battle can be so impactful and important that it requires an entire movie about that one event. Now, I'm not saying I need to see every single thing Napoleon did in this movie, but it would have been nice for the movie to at least acknowledge these events in some way, or, as I said in the first video, instead of cramming it all into one big movie, just make it a trilogy. Have the first film be his rise to power, starting with the siege of Toulon and ending with the Battle of Austerlitz. Have the second movie be about his reign as emperor. Maybe show the battles of Eylau, Aspern, Friedland, the Peninsular War, all leading up to his invasion of Russia, and the final film be his downfall. We see his retreat from Russia, the Battle of Leipzig, his first exile, his return from exile, and finally, Waterloo and St. Helena. It would have given the filmmakers a lot more time to really showcase the crazy life that Napoleon lived. But, like I've noticed, it wasn't from a lack of ability or studio interference or the kind of stuff that usually does bog a film's potential down. It was Ridley Scott just not giving a shit. Or to be more specific, he took all of the shit he had to give and literally dumped it on Napoleon. Bird shit.
That's supposed to be bird shit?
Yeah, it's bird shit. There were birds flying around. See, that's bird shit. They're literally shitting on him. Between Napoleon's weird neurotic nature...
You think you're so great because you have boats!
The awkward as fuck sex scenes, you can just tell what Ridley actually wanted to do with Napoleon in this movie. He wanted to shit on him. But here's the thing. A movie that has a negative perspective on Napoleon is actually a valid thing. Napoleon was a very controversial figure in real life. He did a lot of shitty things. Things that go beyond just cheating on his wife. There was the infamous Battle of Jaffa in his Egyptian campaign where he ordered 3,000 people, mostly women and children, to their deaths via being shot or bayoneted. It took 2 whole days to kill them all. Then you have him reinstating slavery in French colonies in Haiti. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up. But do we hear about these terrible things in the movie? No, we don't, which is so odd for a movie that's actively trying so hard to demonize him. It's like a 5th grader's way of making fun of somebody. Imagine a movie about Adolf Hitler, but instead of the obvious why he's seen as a bad person by anyone with common sense today, instead, Hitler was bad because he ate pizza with a fork and kept a collection of his old toenail clippings in his closet. It is one of the weirdest ways I have ever seen a historical figure be presented. Napoleon wasn't bad because he murdered civilians or allegedly poisoned his own soldiers so he wouldn't have to take care of them anymore. Nope, he was just a whiny freak who couldn't fuck his wife properly. Oh, and he throws a big temper tantrum all because the British have boats.
You think you're so great because you have...
I want him to walk in and she's just getting railed by like 6 servants at the same time.
Including the black general from earlier. He's like, I got lines.
Yep. You wanted an air, bitch.
What the fuck?
Defeated now, bitch!
Hey, don't you just love how a movie will establish characters only to then never use them? I watched this movie with my friends for a video on Patreon, which you can go watch there, and throughout the movie, we kept asking ourselves where Josephine's kids were. Yet, it turns out the whole time, that's them. They were there the whole time and we just didn't notice. But I mean, can you blame us for not realizing that? They have barely any dialogue and have no presence in the film. Or how about Talleyrand? Yeah, he was a pretty important politician. I love how his whole purpose in the movie is to just exposit all the time and then do nothing. Same with Napoleon's marshals. I can't remember a single line of dialogue from any of them, or if any of their names are actually dropped. All this drive-by history only serves to do is make Napoleon's story just seem way smaller in scale. The movie never takes the time to actually establish these people or why they're important. It's just getting harder and harder to not repeat myself at this point. It's pretty obvious what was wrong with this movie. And that problem was Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott's Napoleon Dynamite is a snuff film. It exists solely to shit all over the legacy of one of history's greatest commanders, and it doesn't even do it well. There are movies out there that are critical of Napoleon, and even see him as the villain, but they still take the time to showcase the nuance of history. Napoleon did some shitty things. Terrible things. But he wasn't evil to his core. Like, he's no Hitler or Stalin. He was just a very ambitious man who changed history forever, whether you like him or not. And I think if you're gonna make a serious movie about Napoleon, then it's probably best if you left your bias at the door. The film is horribly paced, awkwardly acted, characters are either weak or practically non-existent. When it's actually trying to be funny, it falls flat. It only makes you laugh when it fails at something so hard. It's just a mess. And Ridley's reaction to it and its criticism is a perfect how-to guide on how not to go about your film. If you're not happy with the way your movie turned out, that's understandable, but ridiculing it and telling critics, you weren't there, so shut the fuck up, is just childish. I mean, you weren't there either, Ridley! Why did you even make this movie when it's painfully clear you didn't want to? Just like his Russian invasion, Napoleon is a disaster. Sure, it's pretty, and I guess at times it can be ironically entertaining, so it's far from one of the worst movies I've ever seen. As a history set piece, it fails in every way to capture the scale, the weight, the magnitude, and the legacy that was the Napoleonic era. And as a movie goes, it's honestly pretty boring. The pacing prevents us from getting a feel for who the characters are, what their desires are, what kind of arcs they're supposed to go through, and just the weight of the wars going on around them. It's too awkward to take anything seriously, and just too jumbled up to really get invested in anything. This isn't a character study of Napoleon, just a character assassination. Again, talking about Napoleon in a negative light is valid and legit, just not like this. If you're looking for a good Napoleon movie, just watch Waterloo. It's completely free to watch on YouTube, so you have no excuse not to. And if you're wanting to actually learn about Napoleon and his life, then might I recommend Epic History TV series on YouTube about him. It's one of the most well-made and interesting documentaries I think I've ever seen. And again, it's on YouTube, entirely free to watch. In the words of Napoleon himself, women are nothing but machines for producing children. No, that's not the one I wanted to read. Religion is what keeps the poor from murdering the rich. Wow, that's, that's very true, actually. Here we go. Show me a family of readers, and I will show you the people who move the world. And what did Napoleon mean by that? Well, it's simple, really. Read a damn book for once, Ridley!
No, I feel like we're gonna puke, dude. I can't keep doing this to myself. I can't. Something's gotta change, brother.
It's a Coca-Cola. Hold on. No one no sleep and I swear too total. Throwing it back when I press rewind. Losing her mind when she see that motion. Yeah.